Hey all, boardgamerants are where you'll find everything solo tabletop gaming and more. And today we're gonna go over, well, it's been out for a bit, Nusfjord by Uwe Rosenburg from a solo perspective only. Let's take a look at it and I'll tell you what I'm thinking on the other side. And welcome to Nusfjord, or Nusfjord, as people commonly call it. Okay, nobody calls it that. Anyway, this is Uwe Rosenburg. This is got the classic Uwe Rosenburg stuff to it, but all in a little compact form. And it's essentially a worker placement game, very straightforward in that respect. You are going to get resources, which are going to help you buy stuff, which again is very classic. Something a little different, though, is that you're not going to be refining a bunch of resources. There's essentially a fish resource, a gold resource, and a wood resource, and that's it. And you're not going to really refine those. There's just going to be kind of, you're going to have to get them in certain ways, and then some might end up in your reserve, which you can't use until you actually get in your supply. So there is sort of a refinement process that's been replaced by sort of this idea of a reserve and stuff. Anyway, but it's pretty straightforward, and a lot like other Uwe Rosenburg games. You have so essentially you're what, a major fishing company, and you're just trying to build up your company, and you've got this land to work with, and then you're going to try and get boats to cover this up to increase the amount of fish that you gain at the beginning of each round, and then you can take a forest action and remove forest that'll get you wood. And you can do that in a number of ways, and that'll open up spaces here where you can build your buildings. And you'll start off with a set of A buildings on this little board. So this is very modular. So you can, I mean not modular in the what you play with, but you can just kind of set your board out any which way, because there's a little board here of A buildings, a little board here with B buildings. There's your home building. Here's where you're going to put your elders, which is another set of actions you can kind of take. Here's the plates board where you load it up with fish to use to feed your elders and stuff. And then up here is the action. This is, that's it. This that little board is where you would place your workers to take an action. And then a little copy action here when you're playing solo. Here's the excess A, B's, and C's cards that you'll use to fill up your boards when you're setting up your game. And over here is a little elders board, and it has the boats up on top that you can purchase to help you get more fish. So what you're trying to do here is, well, what you do, I guess, is when you're playing solo, you're going to play, you have this little nifty thing here, and you can play it two different ways. You can just play just a solo game, or you can play a solo series of 3 games, which is the way I prefer. And you're just trying to basically achieve a high score, but it gives you a goal when you're playing solo. Just one game of 30 to 40 points is a good score. Or if you're playing the series of 3 games, you're trying to get 100 points over 3 games. And if you're just, again, playing this way, where you're just playing one game, you're just going to use the blue workers and red workers and blue workers. And if you play, though, the advanced game, where you're playing 3 games back to back, you're going to use the red, blue, and yellow workers. So you will be, each round you'll gather up the fish that you get for that round. In the beginning of the game, I end up getting 3 fish, but 2 end up in my personal supply and 1 ends up in this reserve. And then over the course of time, I'm very likely going to be purchasing boats, which will cover this up and increase the amount of fish that I get at the beginning of each round. So you'll be doing that. You'll be getting boats. You're going to be purchasing buildings. Now these buildings to help your cause. So you can see. Well, I mean, according to this little doodad, you're going to keep track of the rounds that you get to play. In each round, you get to place 3 workers. Well, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds. So each game, you only get 21 actions. That's it. Very set. Very set. And when you're placing workers out here, you're going to be, you can only have 1 worker per place. And then once you're done with the first round, and you move on to the second round, you're going to get your fish. So I'd gather up 6 and put them in their spots, and then I'd take my next color here, blue, and then I would place these out and take my actions. But I can't, I can't take ones where I've already got the reds there. So I'd have to, do that and maybe that. And then you're going to go to the third round where you get to use your yellows. And then, again, so you have to kind of watch out what you're blocking off, because you can't use those spaces again until you get around to, in this case, till I get around to round 4, where I'd finally be able to take these reds off and use those spaces again. So you're going to kind of be revolving around and around with your colors, placing them out on the board to take your actions, and strategically trying to do it in a way that doesn't block yourself out of something you want to do on a future round. And so there's certainly that to consider, and you're also, each game, going to end up with a different set of A and B cards, and they kind of do sort of a different type of thing. A cards versus B cards versus the C cards aren't even out yet. They don't come out until later in the game here, round 4, which are more like your end game scoring cards. And whereas each game you're going to kind of look and see, you got to develop a strategy based on what you're seeing here. So like, because there's different strategies. You can go where you're really working forestry. You can go where you're really working your fish. You can go where you're really working your gold, or where you're really working your elders. And so yeah, other actions. I mean, so you can take these actions, but then also you can take elders, and you place them sort of on your play area, and then you just got to feed them fish in order to take their action. So that gives you access to another action other than just what's on this board here. But yeah, you might, you have to kind of pay attention to each game, to what you've got available. Like let's see here, the villa. So the villa, this will score 5, 7, or 9 points if it's orthogonally adjacent to 2 or 3+ or 5+ forests. So if I had this here, and then I combine that with, say, a forest hut, where it says when you reforest, place 1 additional forest on the double space. Well, if I take the reforest action, place 2 forests on a free double space, then I would get to place 2 forests on a free double space. And then if I had this forest hut, here, let's say, I get to place 1 additional forest on the double space. So I'd do, 1, 2, and then I'd have to dig out of the box actually and get another forest space and put a third one on top of there. And now I got a villa that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 forests here. I get 9 points for that villa if by the end of this game this all stays the same. So anyway, that's just an example of some of the, that's just one of a very many ways you'll be playing this game, is sort of seeing what cards you have out here and working up a strategy of clearing off forests or not, adding them or not. When you typically take forests off the board, you're going to get wood. You're going to need wood in order to pay for these buildings. Like this villa costs 3 wood, 3 fish, and 2 gold. This one has a varying wood and fish costs. 3 wood, 1 gold. So it's always going to be some combination or nothing of wood, fish, and gold. Sometimes, though, things cost a boat, 1 sloop. So I'd actually have to have a sloop here that I'd purchased that I'd have to pay as a cost to get customs area. So that's a huge part of what you'll be basing, trying to get your points at the end of the game. So once you've kind of gone all the way through here, around 7, you're going to have boats here. You're going to have things covered up, here with buildings or not. And then, and also too, another thing, this is your fishing company. You can also issue shares. You can go public. You can take an action which has you, issue a share, and you get gold that way. And then you can purchase your shares back, and then this becomes part of your dividend and fish that you get at the beginning of each round. And so you'll score points positive for having shares in issued shares in your supply. You'll get negative points if you have unissued shares. You're going to get victory points for having gold. You can get victory points that are showing on your boats as you get them out here. You're going to get negative points for any spots that are still visible where you could have built and no forest or building or covering. And you're going to get points possibly for the different buildings you have out here. And so it's pretty straightforward too. When you're scoring, it takes all of 30 seconds to figure out what you scored, because you'll just kind of look at your buildings, you'll subtract the empty spaces and your unissued shares, you'll add your gold and your shares and your boats, and boom, you've got your score. And then if you're playing this in the series that you can, where you're playing three games, you'll cycle through. You're going to take a certain amount of, any cards that you built, you're going to set aside. You'll be able to possibly shuffle in the A's and the B's and the C's, and those are going to come out, differently in the game 2 and then in game 3 as you cycle through. There's actually 3 different thematic decks that you use. So this is a stack of A, B's, and C's. This is a stack of A, B's, and C's. And this is a stack of A, B's, and C's, but I've just separated them because I'm using them in my game. So there's different thematic decks to use to explore different strategies. Oh, good stuff. Let's talk about how I feel playing Nusfjord. So I have some experience with Uwe Rosenburg games, and ultimately I got kind of tired of them. I started with the great Agricola back in the day, what, 2 decades ago now. It was 2000, late 2000s, I forget exactly when. I think it was my biggest, or at least most expensive game. It was the heaviest box, I remember. And it was the first one, I think, that had like an official solo variant that it actually had, 1 to something players. And yeah, it was like, I want to say it was like $70, which, nowadays is, damn near average. But it was packed with goodies, and there was really no game like it yet. And, about kind of the first of its kind, really, that I'd ever played anyway. This heavy worker placement, Euro. I don't even know if that was even a term back then. Probably was, but I don't know. And since then, I've played a lot of his big box games: Caverna, Fields of Arle, Feast for Odin, and then other games too, like La Havre and Oran Labora and Gates of Loyang, very popular solo game of his, and some other ones like Patchwork. The 2-player version of Agricola was all creatures, great and small. Had a lot of the expansions for Agricola. Anyway, so, and I'm probably missing some there, but ultimately, over the years, it just got to this point where I was like, bleh. I was just Rosenburged out, because they all were the same but different, or different but the same. And I think the last game that really got me was, I just stopped buying them. I know there's a lot out there, and I looked at them and was like, oh, and then yeah, but now fortunately there's just a lot of choices out there with your solo player now. But yeah, the Feast for Odin was the last one that really, I just love that game. It's, because it incorporated all of his worker placement stuff and resource management and conversion and all that, and then added this like crazy Tetrisy covering up spots, beautiful, just the new mechanic was added to his games that I don't remember if Patchwork came first or afterward, but anyway. And so that was like the last novel thing that really got me. And that was some years ago now too. I don't know, like 5 years ago or something when I came out. No, it was a little while ago. Maybe not that long. Anyway, so, but I just kept hearing things about Nusfjord. And so I got it for, I don't know, it was a pretty good price. I feel like it was like $40 or something. And maybe it was a little less than that. It was like 37 or anyway. And so I picked it up, and I hadn't gotten to Uwe Rosenburg in a while, and this was, a lot of people were raving about this game, and that it was heavy, but it was short, just short and sweet and heavy, and just good Uwe solo goodness. So I pick it up and I start playing it, and I'm here to confirm that yes, this is a good one. I have played this game now probably combined, well into the teens, probably close to 15 to 20 times. And because the games are quick, but it is, it just feels like, and I've talked about this on a past when I do my monthly kind of checkups, that it's such a well-designed game. There's just, when a guy's just hit his stride, or gal or whatever, a designer has hit their stride and they're just so good at what they do. This feels like kind of the culmination of that such a meaty game can take up so little space on your table. It's take up, relatively little time to set up. I don't know, maybe when you're first setting up, it takes 10 minutes. But after that, from game to game, well, then you play the series of games, like I was saying, you can play 3. It just takes, a couple minutes just to bounce from game to game. And then each game only takes 20 minutes or so. You just fly through these games because it's basically 7 rounds and 3 actions. I feel like maybe on the 3rd game, I've slowed it down to maybe, over 20 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, because I'm really eking for that 100 points. And so, yeah, there's just, but it plays at such a speed, such a velocity, and I want to say the lack of novelty in this design, as far as, it's kind of the same thing that he always puts out, but it's so wonderfully streamlined that and heck, it could be just that I hadn't really played a Uwe Rosenburg in a while or something, and I was missing it. I'm not sure what it was, but this just hit a spot that had, any game really that has me pulling it out again and playing it, because I'd put this away. I played it last year, put it away, and then I was like, I took it out again. I wanted to play it. That already speaks volumes about a game. I can't tell you how many games, even games that I've been like, oh, this is top 10 stuff, I still haven't pulled out a second time. So there's something to this game, and not difficult to learn. If you played Uwe Rosenberg's before, you're going to pick this one up really quick, and it's just very satisfying. Just, the mechanic of converting, I don't know, clay to brick to blah, 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 that has been sort of simplified into this idea of a reserve, where you get resources. Some of them end up in a reserve. You have to take an action to get them out of that reserve, but there's really only 3 resources, and it's just so wonderfully done. And then you got this idea of elders, which can give you some more actions, so you can skirt sort of the limited action spaces you have out on the main board. But you got to feed them. You got to fill up the banquet table with fish, and when you do that, you get gold. And so, and then you can buy boats, which get you more fish. And then this, I don't know. I love the idea of the whole, being a company that shares, they can sell stock, and because I'm into that sort of thing. So the fact that you've got these unissued shares that you can issue them out there, and then you can buy them back, and then you get points for that. And also the scoring is so easy at the end. You can kind of see what you're going to score, and you can sort of do the quick math, like, okay, I want to cover up the space because it gives you get -1, but I have to spend a gold, which is basically a victory point, to get this building, which then covers up that space, which counters that, and what I end up netting 4 points. Okay, I don't like that. And then you go to the next one. Then so it's just fun and puzzly, and the cards that come out, it's just all, even if you play with the same deck over and over again, you're going to get a different variety, and you're going to have to tackle the game differently each time based on that. Now, I do want more stuff for this. I do want the expansions. I don't have the expansions, but I've already felt like I've gotten so much out of this game just with the base game, and knowing there's expansions out there that are going to just add to the replayability of this already very replayable game. And very inexpensive. I don't know, like $10 or something for these packs. I think there's 2 of them. This is good stuff. So, again, backing up the setup and tear down. I already went over how much time. Table space, you can take up a little 2x2 space. You can really kind of jam it all in there. It's modular. All the boards can fit, nicely, to your liking. You can set it up the way it says in the manual, or you can set it up however you want, so it all fits together. Length of play is quick. Components, of course, they're just great components. It's kind of standard great, I guess. Not, blow your mind stuff, but just good stuff. And thematically, I don't know. It's a Euro game, but I can feel the theme. and beautiful looking. Rule book, very easy. It has a whole appendix, which a lot of you Rosenbergs do, to just allow you to not have to go on BGG and look up all these FAQs. You can just oftentimes just go right to that appendix, and very quickly, very concise is this appendix to just, you know, figure out what you need, whatever question you had. Very nice, comes with the game. The mechanics are supreme. It's just glorious how well this game plays. I can't say enough about just how perfect it feels. You know, it's just as far as Uwe Rosenburgs go. This is just mwah, you know, wonderful. Good strategy. And the fact that you can play it, you know, either as a one-off, or you can play it in the series, which I'll always play, because it allows you to really get crunchy with your strategy, because you have to keep in mind, you block a space, you're not going to be able to unblock that space for till 3 more rounds, until you get back around to that color. Just awesome stuff. So replayable is all get out, fun is all get out. Yeah, this is up there. And if I had to rank, you know, like if games, you know, that are just bad, if I had to rank them in the 6 range, I'm done. They're gone. A game in the, you know, if I was in a top, you know, 1 to 10, a game maybe in the 7 category would be one that's like good, averagely good, may or may not stay in my collection. And then there's an 8 that would be good enough to absolutely, you know, stay in my collection. That would be where this would fall. Probably I would say even an 8 to 8.5 is where I would rank this if I had to rank it. You know, 9s is up there for my, you know, it's not in the 9 category, but this is good stuff, good Uwe Rosenburg solo stuff. So that's all I got to say about Nusfjord. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below, please. And until next time, I sure appreciate you watching. I'm boardgamerants, and I'm out!